গাছেরও প্রাণ আছে. Even trees have life. It was in the year 1901 when Sir Jagadish Chandra Bose proved that plants are like any other life form. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, distinguished guests and passionate enthusiasts of the botanical realm, welcome. Welcome to the 45th annual meeting of Plant Tissue Culture Association of India and the National Symposium on Recent Advances in Plant Biotechnology 2024. Welcome to the celebration of a remarkable world of plants brought to you by the Plant Tissue Culture Association of India and the Department of Biotechnology, Pondicherry University. As we are poised to inaugurate and delve into the kingdom of incredible biodiversity, ecological significance, may I please welcome to the stage an ensemble of beautiful minds. Our chief guest, the Director of Jawaharlal Institute Postgraduate Medical Education and Research, Dr. Rakesh Agarwal. With a staggering number of publications nearing to 300, Dr. Agarwal is an elected fellow of the Indian Academy of Sciences, Indian National Science Academy, National Academy of Sciences of India, and National Academy of Medical Sciences. He was a member of the WHO Strategic Advisory Group on Immunization, Strategic and Technical Advisory Group on HIV, Viral Hepatitis, and is currently a member of WHO's Immunization and Vaccines Related Implementation Research Advisory Committee. He is also the chair of WHO's Southeast Asia Region's Immunization Technical Advisory Group. Dr. Agarwal has been associated with editing several journals and is currently the president of the World Association of Medical Editors. Next, it is an honor to have among us the recipient of the highest civilian award for his contribution in science, Padma Shri Professor Pramod Tandon, the former VC of Northeastern Hill University and the present Secretary of the Plant Tissue Culture Association of India. Please, sir, welcome to the stage. May I also request to join on stage the officiating Vice Chancellor and Director of Studies, Educational Innovations and Rural Reconstruction of Pondicherry University, Professor K. Taranikarasu. Please join Professor Clement Saharaj Lod, the Director of Culture and Cultural Relations, Pondicherry University, Professor Pratap Shetty, the Dean, School of Life Sciences, Pondicherry University, the convener of the Symposium RAPB 2024, Professor N. Arumugam, and of course, Dr. Abhishek Mandal, the Organizing Secretary of RAPB 2024. It is an honor, a privilege, an extent to a dream to stand here today and welcome you all. To be knowledgeable is to be wise, and to be wise is to have light within you. With that, may I please request the dignitaries on this stage to light the lamp.
Very good morning to all of you gathered here. So I think I have a longer time of doing it like welcome address as well as theme as in fact our HOD Professor Sudhakar, since he's unwell, he could not join us today, and he has conveyed all the best to the conference. And at the outset, I would like to welcome Honorable Director, Director of JIPMER, Professor Rakesh Agarwal, who is the chief guest of the event. In spite of his busy schedule, he was able to spare his time and to be with us this morning. I welcome you, sir. Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Pondicherry, of our university. Again, he was very kind enough to be here, and he has been very supportive for this conference. And I welcome you, sir. Professor Clement, Director of Culture and Cultural Relations, Pondicherry University. Again, is another supporter of our department in many activities. So I welcome you, sir. Padma Shri Professor Pramod Tandon, Secretary, Plant Tissue Culture Association of India. And he has been former Vice Chancellor of Northeastern Hill University as well. And the association has been functioning very nicely under his secretaryship. And I welcome you, sir, for this function. Dr. Shetty, who is our Dean, School of Life Science, and he's also been very, very supportive for this conference. And I welcome you, sir. Dr. Abhishek, Local Organizing Secretary of the Symposium, I welcome you as well. And dignitaries of the dais, like Padma Shri Professor Sudhir Sapori, Professor Deepak Pental, Emeritus Professor and former Vice Chancellor of Delhi University, and all the distinguished guests, colleagues from the university, invited speakers, participants, students, and ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all for this event. And coming to the theme of the symposium, it's a 3-day symposium being inaugurated today under the sidelines of 45th annual meeting of Plant Tissue Culture Association of India. PTC is a major component, as you all know, of the plant biotechnology, in which scientists tries to develop whole plant from any plant tissue, including protoplast, microspores, ovules, and even endosperm, by growing them on artificial nutrient medium. The method thus developed is used to genetically modify a plant for agronomically important traits, and also for mass producing rare and allied plants, and for producing pharmaceuticals, including vaccines. So this symposium will be deliberating on basic and applied aspects of plant tissue culture under 5 sub-themes, such as climate resilient crops, agrobiodiversity, genome and genome analysis, medicinal plants, pharmaceuticals, and industrial plant tissue culture. And we have put it under 9 plenary lectures, 3 memorial lectures, 12 lead lectures, and 8 membership presentations delivered by experts in the respective field. It will be followed by oral presentation and poster presentation by young investigators, and the lectures will be covered in 2 parallel sessions. On 3rd day, there will be a panel discussion and a valedictory function. I'm sure that you would all enjoy these lectures and take home a good food of thought to do your research. And I also opportunity to thank all the invited speakers, participants who made it to come over to Pondicherry to participate in this event. And I thank even the Plant Tissue Culture Association, have given the opportunity to organize this 45th annual meeting of the association, with the symposium here. I'm sure you'll all enjoy these lectures, and I wish you all a good deliberation here, and I thank you one and all. Thank you.
I would now like to request Professor Tarini Karasu to honor the chief guest, Professor Rakesh Agarwal, and Professor Pramod Tandon, the Secretary of PTCAI.
Professor Rakesh Agrawal, the chief guest, Professor Tharani Kasaru, Vice Chancellor of Pondicherry University, Professor Pratap Shetty, the Dean, Professor Arumugam, Professor Clement Lourdes, Professor Sudhakar Baluchami, the head of the department who could not come because of his indisposition, Dr. Abhishek Mandal, esteemed members of PTCI. It's really a great pleasure to see some of the stalwarts sitting here, Professor Sapori, Professor Deepak Pental, Professor Paramjeet, and so many plant tissue culture leaders of the country, learned speakers, participants, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Plant Tissue Culture Association of India and on my own, I extend a very warm welcome to each one of you. I'm also grateful to the Vice Chancellor and the team of the university headed by Professor Arumugam for making excellent arrangements. In fact, when I wrote to Professor Arumugam about the decision of the association to hold the meeting here, I think Professor Gurmeet Singh was the Vice Chancellor at that time, and he extended full support, and now the present Vice Chancellor is present to oversee this conference. See, every time when we have our annual session, the first thing I want all of us to remind and remember the great contributions of our founding members. It was in the year 1976, to be precise, on 20th July in 1996, Dr. V. Jagannathan, the then head of the Biochemistry Division at NCL Pune, together with Professor B.M. Johari, Professor H.Y. Mohan Ram, Professor N.S. Rangaswamy, Professor S.B. David, Dr. K.V. Krishnamurthy, Dr. A.F. Meskanhas, and many others jointly decided to start this Plant Tissue Culture Association of India. And the idea was that it should be in line with Gordon Research Conference and also annual Mahabaleshwar Symposium. And since its inception in the year 1976, we have been holding annual sessions together with Symposium at different places. And this year we have come to Pondicherry, again a wonderful place where I'm sure most of you would enjoy seeing not only the academics done here, but also see the cultural part of Pondicherry. As was mentioned by Professor Arumugam, great contributions have been made by Indian plant tissue culturists in terms of micropropagation, germplasm preservation, soma-clonal variation, haploid production, somatic hybridization, secondary metabolite production, genetic engineering, and more recently, gene editing. And we have in our midst, as I said before, some great scientists, Professor Deepak Pental, who has done work, a monumental work on Indian mustard. And yes, last year we saw the light that government gave some permissions for this crop to come. I hope that very soon the hurdles would be over. Let me mention that it provides 20 to 30% more oil compared to the existing varieties that we have in the country. And also, though we are self-sufficient in food grain production, but still edible oils and pulses we do import. And this would be a game changer in our country. Professor Sudhir Sapori has done extensive work together with his group on abiotic stress tolerance, light response in regulating gene expression, and his students are all over the country, not here but abroad also, who are carrying out research in various areas of plant biotechnology. Professor Paramjeet Khurana, she has done wheat, CD biotechnology, sequenced rice, tomato and mulberry, and many more. I'm not going to mention about the work of each of the members who are present here, but let me tell you that this association has been contributing to science in our country in a big way. We do have memorial lectures each year, and this year again we have 3 such lectures which would be held here. And at the annual session, we have presentations by scientists who wish to become members, and based on their presentations, they are elected. And let me tell you, this is a very hard and tough competition. And the idea is to get best of the talent that we have in our country, and eventually they are the ones who are going to lead science. Well, while we talk about the major challenges, I think population growth, as we know, is a major challenge, from presently 6 billion to 9 billion by 2050. Climate change is an imminent reality, and there is massive decline in biodiversity and vital services. So by 2030, we would need 50% more food, 30% more water, and 45% more energy. And I think food and nutritional security would be a major challenge in times to come. I recall when we were preparing the food security bill, we realized the importance of research in this area. We need sustainable agriculture. And let me tell you how tissue culture is being promoted by DBT. In 2006, DBT introduced a national certification system for tissue culture plants to support plant tissue culture industry in our country. And basically, this is to help in certifying genetic fidelity of the plants, as also that they are disease-free. So quality planting material is to be provided to farmers and growers. And I think I read somewhere that over 620 million plants have been certified under this scheme. And we are happy that Dr. Ashutosh Pandey is here. He'll be talking about this program of Government of India. Now, global plant tissue culture market presently is around 390 million, and is going to be something like 895 million by the year 2030. And I think that we need to capture this area for, this should be our major goal, that how we can reach our targets in this area. While we talk of this, a little while back, the young lady who was here, she mentioned about entrepreneurship. I think we need entrepreneurship in biotechnology more than ever before. And starting with 10 biotech startups, we have now more than 5,500 in country. And talking of bioeconomy, which is a major important factor, it's only BT cotton, which is close to $11 billion. We don't have much presence there. And what we need is fiber to food. And I think the work like what Dr. Pentel and others have done in our country needs to be promoted. And if we have to feed the growing population of our country, we need to have GM crops. And I think the scientists who have their say in the government would perhaps try to impress upon the government agencies to really allow things which are needed for our country. I think one goal that we would like to set for our association now would be participation of industry. And I think that over the years, we have been trying that we need to have more corporate members. We have not been able to succeed in that area, but I think that there would be a need to promote this kind of interaction more. And if we wish to become Atmanirbhar in this area of plant tissue culture research and application, we need to bring in industries together with us. So I hope that we would have excellent deliberations over the next 3 days, interact with each other, and at the end of it, perhaps the organizers would prepare concrete recommendations which can be shared with the government for follow-up. And I wish to thank you most profusely for coming here and for your participation at this inaugural session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. May I now please request Professor Pratap Shetty, sir, to say a few words.
Good morning to all of you. Professor Rakesh Agarwal, Director of JICMAR, and one of the leading medical scientists, Professor Taranikaru, officiating Vice Chancellor of our university, Professor Tandon, Professor Sapori, Professor Paintel. In fact, we have plant science luminaries here. I think if young students of the university should interact and get benefited from them. And we have Professor Clement, who is our director, Professor Armugam, and all my colleagues, heads of the departments and colleagues from the university. It's a pleasure having all of you here. In fact, after a very long time, we are seeing one conference from life science site. And plant tissue culture being the topic of the conference is extremely important. In fact, just now you have heard the length and breadth to which plant tissue culture has touched. I think initially, to start with, at least I am also a plant science person to start with. In fact, from my student days, whenever we talk about plant tissue culture, we talk about using it, producing it, doing some lab work, producing it and sending it to the field. And over the years, we have seen that plant tissue culture became a very successful entrepreneurship for lots of people to produce plants. Especially we could see in South, the banana plantation is heavily dependent upon the tissue culture produced bananas, which makes farmers empowered because they can harvest almost in a fixed time rather than staggered harvesting. In addition to that, role of tissue culture in fighting plant diseases has been well documented. Over the period, yes, people started it was also very famous discoveries which came out of tissue culture in terms of development of varieties, and luminaries sitting here are those who have actually contributed immensely to that. But as the years went by, in the recent years, when the gene editing came, again the role of tissue culture became much more highlighted. Therefore, yes, one is farm production, second thing is tissue culture. Tissue culture, will it contribute to in addition to giving, augmenting a food security, can it do something else much better for the industry? Yes, because that plant tissue culture can be used for production of metabolites, induction of various high value products in microcallus conditions and harvesting them. There might be also a few of those scientists who are working with us also sitting here. Therefore, I would like to congratulate Professor Armugam for bringing all the luminaries of tissue culture, plant tissue culture to come together here. And you all know Pondicherry University is one of those leading universities in terms of life science research. And I would request all of you to take some time out, go and visit the university. And we have various schools, and in the science stream we have life science with 7 departments, one of our department in the Andamans, and all other departments concentrated here in this campus. In addition to that, we have physical and chemical, the School of Physical and Chemical Sciences, which is also one of the active school which engages in high-ended research. Same thing, also we have unique school, that is School of Madanjit Singh of green energy technologies. We have green energy technology and nanotechnology. Therefore, from the science stream point of view, our university contributes immensely to the world of academics. And please do, I would request all the delegates from outside to interact with our scientists, and also our students and our faculty to interact with the delegates who are here. And during the 3 days of deliberation, I'm sure that we will exchange views. Yes, no conference is end of any work. It's only a, kindling the minds and also stimulate the ideas and developing collaborations. I would wish great success to this conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. May I please now request Professor Clement Saharaja to please address the audience.
Respected Vice Chancellor in charge, Professor Tarnikar sir, Professor Shetty, Professor Arumugam, the organizer of this wonderful National Symposium, the distinguished speakers who are on the dais, invited guests, research scholars and students. A very good morning to you all. When Arumugam sir came to me to give the invitation, I was indeed very happy till I opened the invitation. But when I opened the invitation, I saw my name was also included. But I do not know why my name was included, because I am not in any way connected with this particular field of knowledge. Being a language man, I do not know anything about this subject. Then I thought of some time when Professor Arumugam visits me again, I would ask him to tell something about the subject. But fortunately, yesterday, even though it was a holiday, Professor Arumugam came back, and I caught him around and asked him to teach me this particular subject. And Professor Arumugam was an excellent teacher, but I was a very bad student. Therefore, whatever he said has gone above my head, and I could not comprehend anything what he said. But the girl who came here to welcome us all came out with one sentence which has given me a spark, and I thought that I can expend it to some extent so that I can escape. The girl said that every plant has life, and if it is so, then I remember a story from R.K. Narayan, and that is my area of specialization. A beautiful story, and you can find this in UG and PG classes also. And I have taught this story many times, and this is the axe. That is the title of the story. From the title of the story itself, you can understand how much the writer gives importance to the cutting of trees, because when the axe comes, the tree is cut down. Here we come across a very young boy who starts his career as a gardener, and he was employed in a very spacious house, and the owners are helping him out to make a garden. And he is particularly fond of a tree that he plants, Malgosa tree, and you all know about the medicinal property the tree has. And this is something very dear to him, and the other trees too. And he has been properly taken care of, and he was given food and shelter, and everything is going on well for some time. But unfortunately, the first generation goes away, and he also becomes very old. The second generation is not as good as the first one. They are all money-minded. So these youngsters, they want to clean the garden in the sense that there should not be a garden, and the property has to be sold to somebody else. And again, unfortunately, this garden goes to the hands of a factory owner. And immediately, I need not even tell you, the first target is the garden. So all the trees have to be cut down. That is what the demand. And this man was expecting the day when the garden will be totally devoid of trees. And that happens after a few weeks. The morning he hears the ruthless cutting of trees in the garden. He comes out to see that already a few trees have been cut down. But he makes only one request: don't cut the Margosa tree, which he has been, looking after for so many years. But unfortunately, those people say the command has come from the owners that not even one single tree should be left behind. Therefore, what to do? And immediately the man says, I am taking away all the property that I have here, and I am going to bundle off my belongings, but don't touch the tree at least for some time till I go away. You give me some time. I will take everything and get out from this place, but till then don't cut the tree. And taking pity on the man, they agree to it. And the story ends like this. He takes his belongings and he looks at the tree. It is almost like his child. Tears roll off from his eyes, and he bids farewell to the tree, and then he starts running away from that place. We could hear the voice of this man that I am still in the vicinity. My friends, please don't cut the tree. Don't cut the tree. I am still here. But the voice is very vague, and they partly hear this man. So that is the condition, because the sympathy that we show for these type of plants and trees, that is very important part of a scientist, in my opinion. And that marks the distinction between a teacher in the Department of Humanities and a teacher who happens to be a scientist. And because the world is changing, and we do not know what is going to happen the next day. And in fact, the generals at the top in Delhi, they are also making some proclamations like we are waging an undeclared war with the neighboring countries almost every day. We are not aware of that. And Arundhati Roy has come out with a very beautiful book, The End of Imagination. That is the title of that book. And in The End of Imagination, she says, it has taken millions of years to have this world, but you can finish it off within a few seconds. So it is in the hands of the scientist that what we are going to do for the future. So if you protect humanity with plant biotechnology, then it is one way of keeping one way of planting humanism in science. And this is what the English teacher like us would like to tell you all. And I hope that this symposium to some extent will pay to this and make the world a better place for us to live in. Thank you so much.
May I now take the opportunity to release the abstract book by Professor K. Tharinikarasu, the Vice Chancellor of Pondicherry University.
Respected Chief Guest, Professor Rakesh Agarwal, Director JIPMER, Professor Pramod Tandon, Secretary Plant Tissue Culture, Professor Clement Sagaraja Lourdes, Director CNCR Pondicherry University, Professor Shetty, Pradap Kumar Shetty, Dean School of Life Sciences, Professor Sudhakar, who could not able to join today, Professor N. Armugam, Convener Department of Biotechnology of this conference, and Dr. Abhishek Mandal, Secretary of this conference, and Professor Gurmeet Singh, he could not also make it today because he went to Calcutta. He conveyed his regards to all the delegates and the dignitaries in the conference. So, I could see Professor Sapari and Professor Deepak Pental. So, when I was in Delhi University, he was my Vice Chancellor. So, good morning everyone, and ladies and gentlemen. So, it is a wonderful opportunity to interact and see all the plant biotechnologists. And when I see this plant biotechnology, and when I was in college, there was a BSc biotechnology and BSc botany those time. But when I come back and joined here, as I could not see BSc botany and BSc zoology, everything vanished. So I don't know, it is a good development, but now at the advent of new education policy, I don't know, I was requesting Professor Armugam whether we could start thinking of starting this UG honors botany, because I could see we are talking more on technologies and then the development of the plant biotechnologies, but the basics for the students. But still, it is, I think you can also deliberate on this conference. To me, it is the basics is still not good for the students. They are not up to the mark. See, for example, I am basically a chemist, when I ask why do we inhale and exhale in the class, nobody knows about this. It's basically a chemical reaction. When the chemistry was started, it is initially when Berzelius in 1807 he started. So he was distinguished between the inorganic and organic chemistry. That was the basics of all material science and basic science also. So he could able to distinguish the living and non-living things. And the chemistry was introduced to understand the molecules present in organism. That's what the organic chemistry was started. But now organic chemists are synthesizing novel new molecules, but they left behind what is real chemistry in the biological systems. And there comes the all biotechnologies, biochemistry, but unfortunately they can't also understand the real small molecules. What is the role of small molecules? So this is where now we have to think seriously. The students do not know the ecosystem. Even I quoted, the students do not know why do we inhale, why do we exhale means, then they don't know about the carbohydrates, role of carbohydrates. Even what is the role of plants in our ecosystem? What is the role of animals? What is the role of humans? All those things we are talking about technologies, but basically students do not have the idea. So that is why I requested Arumugam to start the BSc Botany. But this is a serious concern for apart from the research, but the basics of these plants, biochemistry or the ecosystem, all those things, see, there should be a real research on the combination of the chemistry, geology and biochemistry. So if you have this, then the technology also will be very useful. But unfortunately now this communication among these, the interdisciplinary research on this is not there. But now we are, even the tissue culture, we are thinking of enhancing the tissue culture and all whatever the problems we face in plants is, I hope it is being discussed. But the nature is doing the other way. Whatever we require, it puts into the plants and exists in the plants, and then we are taking the small molecules from the plants and then we are extracting it and utilizing it. But is it possible for us to do this? Because I want to incorporate certain molecules into the plant. I want to take it as a metabolite. But it is very challenging, highly challenging now. So we should also have, if you have the research on this, we should also think on those lines, how instead of if you do this on the large scale in the metabolite as a plant metabolite, then we can curtail the CO2 emission, CO emission, and we can also reduce the constructing mechanically industries. So these are the field, very good field, because this is a nature's laboratory. Botany is the nature's laboratory, where you are all blessed to understand the nature and understand the ecosystem. So in this way, so the research in botany, research in plant biotechnology is very useful, very sensitive, because all other fields we always say green chemistry, green technology, but you always do green. So in that way, whatever you do is green. We do always 2% of green chemistry, all those things, but 98% of your research is always green research. So you are all, whatever you do, definitely it is going to be the green technology and very useful to the community. So in this way, I am really happy to be part of this conference, recent advances in plant biotechnology. 2024. I also thank for the organizers and I also thank the Plant Tissue Culture Association for supporting. I also thank the great solvers like Professor Sapari, Professor Pantal and Professor Pramod Tandon for taking your valuable time, coming over here and sparing your time along with the young students. It is going to be really memorable event for our biotechnology students. Thank you one and all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I now request our chief guest, Professor Rakesh Agarwal, the Director of JIPMER Pondicherry, to deliver his address.
Professor Tarnikarasu, Professor Lourdes, Professor Pramod Tandon, Professor Pratap Shetty, Professor Arumugam, Dr. Abhishek Mandal. In the audience, Professor Sudhir Sopari, Professor Deepak Pental, other distinguished scientists, delegates at the conference and symposium, ladies and gentlemen. Vanakkam, Namaskar, good morning. I am very pleased to be here on the occasion of this annual conference of Plant Tissue Culture Association. Somewhat similar to Professor Lourdes, when I was approached to be here, I had somewhat similar thoughts. Though I rationalized it possibly much earlier, thinking that it's fine because there are some commonalities. We may think that plant biotechnology is a relatively recent field from the 20th century, but we are all aware that actually it started very early, several thousands of years BC, when human beings decided to domesticate plants and to some extent animals, and they started doing selection, breeding, grafting, and things such as this to produce better crops. So in that sense, I think it was my duty to be here as a layperson who's benefited from what the plant technologists, plant biotechnologists have done over centuries. Because we have benefited from better crops. In my lifetime, we now have sweeter watermelons, we have sweeter fruits, we have better tomatoes. As my mother-in-law would say, bigger cauliflowers, though obviously she sometimes says that they are not as tasty. But then I think all of us, actually the mankind would not have expanded where we are was it not for the amount of food production that we have been able to do over the centuries. Because we have had better technologies, so that we have been able to better preserve these plant products. And of course, like everything in science, there are advantages and disadvantages. I don't know whether this large population is an advantage, is a disadvantage, but I think all of us are here because of the work done by plant biotechnologists. So that's the first thing. Secondly, being in medicine, biology is the same. A lot of what we have learned and a lot of what we practice has come from plants. Were it not have been for Mendel, and we hadn't known the principles that all of you are using, we in medicine would have been much poorer, much poorer. We would not have understood the basis of disease. We would not have thought of investigating people. We would not have developed treatments, diagnostic tech tools based on biotechnology, developments that came from the plant world and came to us, and we have been beneficiaries. But I think, then I thought, ultimately, so those of you who may not know, I am a gastroenterologist, look after diseases of the GI tract. That basically, you and I are doing the same thing, ensuring nutrition to people. You help produce more food, we look after those people whose digestive systems have some problems so that they cannot digest and let these nutrients reach the blood for people to work, and so there are a lot of similarities. Of course, the similarity that he showed us to plants for all living beings is obviously a much higher level of thinking, and I think that's fantastic. So, as a medical professional, how do I look at plant biotechnology and where it can take us beyond just producing more food, better food, and there are several things that come to my mind. We in medical science are interested in having plants that can contain differing amounts of nutrients than what we have traditionally been used to. Of course, we are all aware of plants that have a larger amount of vitamin A, and we would like those to be used because vitamin A deficiency continues even today in many parts of the world, including in some parts of India, to be a major cause of childhood blindness. And if we can have crops that will have a larger amount of vitamin A, which comes from plants, then we could take care of this problem. Similarly, one of the major reasons behind all human disease, and in our country in particular, where the child birth rate remains small, it's not related to poverty, because there are parts of Africa where poverty is much more deeply ingrained than it is in India. And it seems there is a lot of literature available to show that it is related to lower protein intake in our country. Also, knowing that our population is mostly a lot of our population is vegetarian, and even those who say that they are non-vegetarian, the proportion of meat in their dietary intake is much smaller. And we can't increase meat production beyond a certain level given the amount of land we have, and knowing that the efficiency of energy conversion from the energy that the earth gets to the food energy is much lower in case of animal food, increasing this protein intake for us is a big challenge. And we need our plant biotechnologists such as you to work on crops that will have a greater protein concentration, maybe maize, maybe rice, maybe wheat. I realize that there's a limit to it, but if we can do that, that can have major consequences which would impact human health in our country. Because if we are able to do this, and that increases the average birth weight of a child in the country, which continues to be around 2.8 kgs, if we can increase it to 3.1, 3.2 kg, that would be a major change in our health status in the coming generations. Today, we do have a problem of undernutrition that I referred to, but we also have a problem of overnutrition. We have obesity, we have lifestyle diseases, and a lot of it is related to fat intake, especially the type of fats that our foods contain. And we heard about the work from India about mustard, which produces more oil. We are not only interested in producing more oil, which is for food security, for foreign exchange reserves, etc., very important, but we are also interested from the medical science point of view in having oil seeds that contain oils which are healthier, which have greater amounts of polyunsaturated fatty acids compared to saturated fatty acids, so that those who consume them, we have to consume fats. I know we doctors may keep saying, please avoid taking fats, but that's what makes the food tasty, what makes the food interesting. Without that, none of us can live. So we would like oil seeds that would have a different composition, a different relative distribution of healthy and unhealthy fatty acids, and that's something that we look forward to work from you so as to do this. Of course, better taste. We all want foods which taste better, and I think another problem for our country in particular is that we have a large amount of post-production damage to crops. Our crops, our fruits, our vegetables are not lasting as long. They are much better than what we used to have when I was a child, but I think we need plants that can be processed, that can be stored for a longer time, and that can be converted into products, and that's again something that we expect from our plant biotechnologists, and I'm sure they will do this, and that will be very useful to us. Now, if I start taking on not as a role of a health advocate, but as a role of a physician who treats diseases, there are certain diseases where we would really benefit. Many of you may be familiar with something called gluten enteropathy or celiac disease, a disease that affects a small proportion of people, but they are unable to process gluten, which is the protein in wheat, and we are looking forward for those small proportion of people who are afflicted with that disease, diets that could take care, which could have a reduced gluten. I realize that there are problems. The wheat flour then is not going to be able to be, for kneading, it's not going to be good for making chapati maybe, but then all these are problems that we think of. I know that scientists can take care of many of these problems, and we can possibly find solutions so that we reach something which has the good characteristics of wheat, but is relatively smaller in quantity in terms of gluten, and that might be of use to people. Or maybe we can have plants which will produce an enzyme so that when you eat it, it already has enzymes and the gluten will be digested better in the digestive system before it is absorbed, and that would be useful. If one starts looking far beyond, there can be more things. There could be plants that have different composition so that they would promote different kind of microbiome in the GI tract, which would be healthier. Maybe the undigestible material in the plant would be such that it would promote the growth of good microbiome, but that's possibly much later into the future. As a medical person, I some years ago was obviously deeply influenced and was very impressed with the proteins that we could make in the plants and use for making vaccines for humans, and think in terms of edible vaccines. I am a hepatologist, deeply work on hepatitis B vaccine, and some 20 years ago when there was a paper which talked about having potatoes which will express the surface protein of hepatitis B surface antigen, that was that month's paper for the Journal Club when I was a young faculty member. We realize today that possibly oral vaccines in food are not going to be possible because human biology is different. When you eat something, that induces immune tolerance rather than immune response, but still producing these in plants and then isolating the protein and injecting as vaccines. I know it's happening for animals, and I'm sure it's going to happen for human beings in the future. And we look forward to that day. There are other challenges. We are all trying to promote millets. At least as a layman, my thought is that we can't eat too much of millets. The reason being that if all of us want to eat millets for health purposes, we'll have to eat so much that our land won't be able to produce that much crop. So maybe we need to work on millets so that's to increase their production capacity, and that would be another challenge that I think you people have here. But I think a bigger challenge is the challenge that we have as a society. As a society, we have been very tardy in accepting plant biotechnology. I don't know why. The moment the word biotechnology or genetically modified foods comes, we somehow seem to become resistant. But then you are not alone. All of you know what happened during COVID. People were unwilling to take vaccines because they thought that these were genetically modified. So to that extent, we are comrades in arms. We are fighting the same battles. I realize that some concerns may be valid. Will these genes cross over into weeds? Would the weeds then outgrow? Would there be some of these characteristics and the products of these plants affect life? Will they affect insects so much? Would they affect fish once they in a part of the country such as Pondicherry? Will these reach the sea and then affect the fish? Yes. So I think we as scientists need to make sure that we do sufficient testing and convey the results of this testing and how we do it. It is on us to convey to the people the kind of precautions we have taken and how we have actually used genetically modified foods all through humanity for centuries, for millennia, and that this is only difference is we are doing it now in the lab, a smaller lab with a glass rather than doing it in a field lab, and that's the only difference we have, and we need to do that. It will need public conversation, it will need public debate, it will need public information. And I think we need to join hands. After all, we need to tell people 90% of people in India who got vaccine got Covishield, not Covaxin. Covaxin was a killed virus. We grew the virus, we killed it and we used it. What we used Covishield was nothing but a plasmid containing DNA which was injected into most of us, and we formed antibodies and it helped us. If we can do it directly, injecting into our arms, possibly it's going to be less harmful when we give artificial DNA by the GI tract, where as a gastroenterologist I know that it will be broken down by DNases into smaller molecules. It's not going to be absorbed. So I think we need to join hands and see to this that this resistance is taken care of, both to genetically modified foods as well as to drugs. Actually, to some extent, I think on the medical side, we seem to, in the recent past, have moved faster. For those of you who may not know, we now have CRISPR-Cas9 based treatment has been approved in some countries for the treatment of sickle cell anemia. It's a disease where the protein, the hemoglobin protein produced is abnormal and that causes disease. And we now have CRISPR-Cas technology. You inject it and it will lead to not the reduced production of that protein, but some other protein will be overproduced, so-called fetal hemoglobin, and the person's symptoms disappear. In the field that I work on hepatitis B, it's an infection, it's a virus in the body. People are working, phase 1-2 trials have already been done in humans, where we are trying to inject antisense nucleotides, oligonucleotides, so that we can reduce the production of the viral protein, so that the viral mRNA that has been produced from the viral nucleic acids and would produce the viral proteins, you inject antisense oligonucleotides so as to reduce the production of viral proteins. People are again trying to use CRISPR-Cas9 so as to break down the viral DNA which is in the nucleus of the liver cells of a person. So I think as those get accepted, my hunch would be that this acceptance will come also for plant biotechnology. So we really need to walk step by step in both of us in tandem, and things would be okay and we would see progress. But there is one area where I think we may not realize resistance. We may think resistance is to genetically modified foods, but I think in our country a lot of resistance actually comes from the fact the farmers' rights. We are seeing plant biotechnology coming in, but the problems, at least as I understand as a layperson, is that farmers are worried that those seeds, we will lose our own biodiversity of crops, and those seeds can be used only in one season and cannot be used again. And that, I think, is the biggest fear, which at least in our country, we may say that we are a backward country in some senses, but I think our people take to science much faster. That's what at least I feel, that when you explain to people, people do accept it. People have a greater faith in science. And I think the bigger resistance is from the farmers' right issue. And if we can make sure that this plant biotechnology happens in India, it's our companies who do it, who make sure that the farmers' rights, the traditional rights to seed, to reusing seeds, etc. are preserved, and we make technology easier for people to use, then it's going to take off. With that, I again congratulate the Plant Tissue Culture Association and delegates, and I'm very grateful that you asked me to be here. It did give me some time to reflect at similarities between another field and me and my work, and I'm very grateful for that. I might have been wrong in some facts, possible, because of course I am not a plant biotechnologist, and I hope you would excuse me for that. Thank you. Bye-bye.
What an amazingly inspirational talk, sir. Young researchers in the audience, I hope you are taking notes for writing your research proposals. Now, may I request the organizing secretary, Dr. Abhishek Mondal, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I consider myself very fortunate and highly privileged to propose the vote of thanks on this special occasion. First and foremost, I would like to express my deep sense of gratitude to our esteemed and honorable chief guest, Professor Dr. Rakesh Agarwal, Director of JIPMER, for being with us. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation, sparing your precious time, and addressing this august gathering. Your speech was very inspiring and motivational, and it means a lot to us, sir. I thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor in charge, Professor Dr. K. Tarnikarasu, for gracing this occasion and delivering his presidential address. We really need to decipher the chemistry behind inhalation and exhalation. I extend my heartfelt thanks to all the respected dignitaries on the dais. Professor Clement Sagai Raja, Director of Culture and Cultural Association. Thank you, sir, for your plant-based story with a moral value. And admirable Professor Dr. Pratap Shetty, Dean for School of Life Sciences of Pondicherry University, for their presence at this RAPB event. We are very much blessed to have eminent lead speakers accepting our invitation. Dr. Pramod Tandon, Dr. Sudhir Sopori, both recipients of Padma Shri Award. The names don't require any introduction. Dr. Deepak Pental, and also many other distinguished scientists and professors with dynamic personalities from reputed institutions. Moreover, we also have with us young and innovative researchers filled with energy and enthusiasm from renowned universities and institutes. By now, I have realized that delivering vote of thanks is quite challenging, and considering the fact that the list is too big and there is time constraints involved. So I cannot thank everyone enough for the involvement they have shown and the willingness they have expressed to take on the completion of tasks beyond their comfort zone. So we have lit the lamp of knowledge, let the flame of cognizance spread everywhere. Right now it is not burning, but it should. Finally, once again, I thank you all for the attention. Let us make this conference memorable, one with resounding success. Thank you.